You're still here on the AM show. We're continuing a conversation we started yesterday, and today we want to focus on maintaining student discipline while upholding their rights. Some people seem to suggest that it's because of the rights issues that we've talked about for a very long time. That's why students are allowed to do the sort of things that we see them do today, particularly with the reaction to the WASSCE examination, the paper they sat for on Monday, the integrated science. But let's take you to Damongo. Students of Indeura Jakpa Senior High Technical School in Damongo in the West Gonja municipality have gone on rampage, vandalizing schools' properties in protest against the 1.5-meter social distancing sitting in the ongoing West Africa examination, council examination in the school. The students, who were mostly boys with few girls among them, first destroyed the lighting system and plunged the whole school into darkness. Part of the ceiling of a new 6-unit classroom block that was handed over to the school to end double track were also removed. But here's the story.
The new blow went under attack.
Yeah. Block that was.
I don't need a supplement.
It's gone beyond border.
Huh?
It's gone beyond border. Oh, there's something.
Have you seen the top there?
Yeah, I'll go there.
I should do this.
How did they manage to reach up there to do this?
Look at this is where they climb.
Oh,
The best.
wow.
That's the best.
They threw the whole school into a darkness. I don't need a supplement.
It's gone beyond border.
Huh?
It's gone beyond border. Oh, there's something.
Showing live on air now. The video that you see, actually students of Indeura Jakpa Senior High School, Senior High Technical School in Damongo in the West Gonja municipality, as part of their protests, their disagreement of the social distancing in the examination hall. This is to show their unhappiness, and what they did was to tap into the school's lighting system, and that resulted in total darkness. And this is part of their them protesting the fact that the arrangements in the examination hall is one that they are not happy with. They said they are overdoing the social distancing in the examination hall. This is not the first time we've seen the Cheneboa Senior High School also in Kumasi also reacting in a way that has been condemned by many. The fact that their headmaster is strict with the supervision. So this is just adding to the stories that we've heard and the stories that we've told you. There's also another one that came in yesterday from my colleague Martina Bugri from Tamale, and the story was that the exams officer of the Tamale Senior High School, Alex Nair, is asking for protection for his family following attempts by some students to attack him. Mr. Nair, who spoke to Joy News, said his only crime was not allowing the student to engage in any malpractice during their integrated science paper during the exam. Here's a little of what he shared.
Oh, the only reason is simple. The point was that I did not allow them to cheat or to be engaged in more during the exam.
Okay, if we can, we will also show you some of the videos that have gone viral with students showing on their unhappiness, really, with how supervision has gone.
Fellow Ghanaians, this is a letter from the countries to the president. Nana, then what you do? You make we solve this book from cover to cover, cover to cover, page to page, English, already, everything.
This is how far we have come. Yesterday, when we started this conversation, many people thought, no, it's because we've talked about their right. See where we are today, threatening, they're threatening heads of schools, they're destroying school infrastructure, and they're even videoing themselves and showing their faces. They simply don't care. So let's start the conversation right here. Mr. Bright Appiah is Executive Director, Child Rights International, author of A Child is a Subject of Law. He joins us via Zoom. Mr. Bright Appiah, if you can hear me, a very good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
How are you?
I am very well, thank you. In studios, the General Secretary of the National Association of Teachers, Mr. Thomas Musah. Good morning to you as well. Thank you for being here.
And good morning to your viewers. And good morning to my big brother, Bright Appiah. Yeah, don't worry. I'll certainly fulfill my promise.
I can be the middle person. Please pass it through me and then I'll deliver it. In the course of the conversation, we will also have Mr. Anthony Boateng, who's Deputy Director with the Ghana Education Service, on this conversation. Let me begin with you, Mr. Bright Appiah, because you've been preaching the subject of rights. Is what we are seeing today as a result of rights?
Well, I don't think so. Let me be straightforward, because what happened or what you're experiencing has nothing to do with right. And as you've mentioned, if you look at my book that I have authored, I trace the history of right, and right has nothing to do with indiscipline. And if any society is showing that aspect, it is the more reason why we have established a principle that all of us must follow, so that people would live up to their responsibilities as well as they are enjoying their right. But if they go contrary to some of these principles that have been established, that we enjoy out of right and also out of the responsibility that we give, then nobody would come to the conclusion that what students are doing that has something to do with right and all that. Absolutely not.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. A lot of callers yesterday suggested that. Mr. Musah, is this what you're teaching our students? Because this is a reflection of what should we blame this on?
Thank you very much. Good morning once again to our listeners and viewers. I want us to tread cautiously at this point, because whenever there is an issue like this, there is every temptation to apportion blame. For some people, they may want to blame teachers. For some, we want to blame parents. Some will want to blame the students themselves. Some will even want to blame the Ghana Education Service. And I think that it is too early in the day to start asking as to what went wrong and what didn't go wrong. If you study the video footage carefully, you will realize that there was an issue of past questions, and past questions is not today. I mean, it is a common knowledge that anytime a student is going to write his or her exam, you certainly need to make reference to the past to give you a fair idea of what you should expect. So for them making reference to the past questions, I think there is nothing wrong with it. I mean, it is something now we all went through it. But as to whether there was a promise that what they are learning is what will come, it is another issue that must be investigated, because that there is no established fact that somebody told the students that these were the questions that are coming. There is nothing like that. The second thing is, if you listen to the one of the comment made by the students that somebody collected money from them or something like that, that is also a subject of investigation, which the Ghana Education Service will have to look into. And having said all those things, I think that WAEC must be commended, and all the people who assisted WAEC in conducting the exam must be commended, because, you see, if we do not take care by yielding to some of these things, we will end up producing students who will one day become our teachers, will become medical doctors, will become lawyers. And in producing our human resource, we must let them go through the required training to acquire the skills, not necessarily the certificate, but the ability to deliver on their mandate. That should be our focus. And so, regarding as to who did not do his work well and all that, I think it is early days yet. And I believe that the Ghana Education Service will want to investigate the whole thing. So I want us to say that we should not...
I think the issue of past questions and they not coming, if you're expecting it and you've actually put all your hopes on it, and then it doesn't happen and you're disappointed. That happens to all of us.
Exactly.
But I'm looking at the reaction of these students. Maybe let me start in terms of the reaction with you, Mr. Pierre. What do you make of how they've reacted in terms of the distractions, somebody urging them on to continue destroying things? We've heard about how teachers have been threatened, and we told you this story in Tamale, where at least one person was his family has also been threatened, and he's asking for security. So they are not acting like children, are they? These are not actions of children.
Oh, not at all, not at all. And for me, seeing children doing that or students doing that, there are two things that comes to mind. One is when we were giving them the past questions, what was the motive for doing that? Because in the past, students do have access to past questions, and they tried as much as possible, first of all, to understand how WAEC set questions and to possibly see whether or not some of the questions will repeat so that at least they'll be conversant with it. But in this time, government has never bought past questions for students directly. Instances where they will buy it and put it at the library so children would have access to it and read. But this time we had experience where we bought it directly for them. And for students, if you do that, there are two ways that you can express your concern to them. Either you express it like you make it known to them, but also you can also make your intention known to them by implied conditions and all that. So clearly, I felt that the decision of government to buy past questions for them is a good one, but I feel that the communication didn't go well. So they feel that, well, because we are the first batch that are going to write the first batch that are going to write the exams in terms of the free senior high school, therefore there will be some kind of leverage for us because a system want to prove that what I have done is okay, more students will pass. So there's all kinds of expectations that we didn't manage properly. For that matter, students felt disappointed because they feel that if you have given them past questions for them to solve, then there's a clear indication that you're going to send a question from there, which we not solely blame the authorities for it or the student, but it is all about how we manage some of these things and how we transit policy from political decks into the and place it within the.
This is expected. We're using technology to connect to Mr. Pierre, so he will come back to us when the connection is a bit more stable. But Mr. Musah, I was asking about the reaction.
Exactly.
We understand the disappointment, but reaction leading to indiscipline, that's unacceptable.
In fact, the reaction of the students must be condemned. It should not be encouraged, because these are our future leaders. And per Article 41 of the Constitution, they must understand that they have rights and responsibility. These are students who are preparing to enter the tertiary level of education. And within the next 3 to 4 years, they will graduate, and some of them will be going to the teacher training, some of them will become teachers, some of them will be going to the law school and the medical sciences, among others. So looking at looking at where they have gotten now, and the kind of behavior that we are seeing, and or the footage we are seeing, it is not something that we need to encourage in our country, and we must discourage it. And I will say that it is disturbing and must not, I mean, nobody will actually accept this behavior anywhere. Even if you see your child in there, you should be disappointed. Having said that, I earlier on made a statement to the fact that there is nothing wrong giving past questions to somebody and students. We have all gone through it. It gives you the idea of what really happened in the past, and it will also enable you to know what you should expect. And if you go and what you have studied, if the thing comes, fine. Thanks be to God. But if you go in there and what you are expecting didn't come, you manage with what you have. We have all gone through it. But like Writer Pierre said, and as I indicated earlier on, as to whether there was a promise that what the document we are giving to you, there will certainly be questions out of it. It is another issue.
You are not. What did you hear?
It's a subject of investigation. I don't know anything as to whether there was a promise or something.
Okay.
I cannot speak to that.
Okay.
But it is only an investigation that can establish that. The other thing too is that the students were saying in the footage that they paid money. That is also a subject of investigation. And so when we have an investigative body put in place to look at all those things, then we can establish the facts, and then lessons that ought to be learned from it, we all learn from it. But what really happened in the schools is unfortunate, it's unprecedented, and I think that we must do everything to nip this particular thing in the bud. The next time we learn to manage the expectation of our children. And the last thing I want to add on this particular thing is that, you see, it is becoming like do and die affair that you certainly must. I mean, if I want to become a lawyer, so because of that, whatever it takes for me to become a lawyer, it must be.
Is it whose expectation is that? Is it the student or is the parents?
You see, the students are part, in particular the pressure from parents. If the parent is a lawyer, the expectation of the parent is that my son should become a lawyer. And so everything that child will need to become a lawyer, to the extent of assisting that particular child, some people don't have a problem doing that. And these are issues, like I was telling you, these are issues that must be established. And as a country and as a people, we must be careful the way we are going. Look, education has 3 domains. It is not only about the head. You can train somebody who has a very sharp mind, academically good and all that. But if the person's value system, the person's interest, and the person's, how do you call it, patriotism is not there, then we are in for trouble. Because these are people who will be ruling and be managing affairs of this particular country. And so it's very critical that in as much as we are focusing on the cognitive aspect, we should not forget on the affective and also the psychomotor, so that we develop a holistic individuals. Like the Bible says, train the child the way you should go. And that when the child is old, he will not depart from it. What shall it benefit us if we equip these children with all the knowledge they need, and they go out there and they come to plunder our resources? Then it amounts to nothing. And so this calls for a collective responsibility. Let us all find out, have this matter investigated, where we got it wrong. Let us correct it so that we rewrite our wrongs, and next time we'll not repeat it.
Great. Before I go to Mr. Bright-Pierre, there's some news coming in. Students of the School of Hygiene at Korle Bu have besieged the premises of the Ministry of Sanitation, protesting the failure of the ministry to pay allowances due them over the academic period. My colleague Nancy Emefajradosi will be live, and we will bring you what is happening on the ground with this particular matter. Ms. Apia, you didn't quite land when we lost you. Hello, Bryce Apia.
I was on talking, so I didn't know where I ended. But let me start from where General Secretary ended. I strongly believe that what happened is unfortunate, and we need to draw the distinction between indiscipline and right. And I'm establishing that this has nothing to do with right. And one of the institutions that we have mandated to train our children is our educational system. And once they are there, they are expected to obey the rules and regulations that governs it, provided it does not contradict the provisions of the Constitution as well as the Children's Act. So we cannot just take what they did on the surface that is a matter of right. But let's also look at this. I really want to understand what is the motive for government to say that we want to bypass questions for this particular group of years. So once we are able to establish that, then it sends a communication to the system that probably government has made us special in terms of policy arrangement. Government feels that, okay, this is the first time, therefore, government is going to do everything possible for us to pass. That is why they are putting in some of these interventions and all that. Again, we have also designed our educational system such a way that once you take exams, our examination system is not designed for majority of students to pass, but it is designed on the basis of how many students will fail. So when students go into examination hall and they know very well that they are unable to answer certain questions, they feel that their life has come to an end, and gradually the ambitions of life is also ending. So this is purely based on policy issue. And I must also say that when you visit some of the schools, the relationship between the school, the management and student is not always the best. It is an approach where we ask you to do this, we ask you to do that, and they don't invite their input into it. So when you combine all this, you get the kind of result that we are getting. But again, we are establishing that, look, what they did is totally wrong, is indiscipline, they have violated school rules, and any law that applies to it, we have to treat it as such. Because even in the Juvenile Justice Act, the law says that if you are 12 years, you are responsible for any criminal act and any tortious act that you conduct as a child. So if they have violated from that principle, I think that whatever it is that we need to do to correct that behavior, we need to do it. Okay. But however, we should also begin to question policy arrangement and how we design policies, and then put in the environment for people to have their own interpretation as to what those policies are. And I strongly believe that this is what resulted into the kind of expectations that the children had when they were going to write the exam. Okay, great. We'll come back to what structures are on the ground. Why are students threatening head teachers and they seem to not have anything to do, or how do they even respond? And we'll set the example